Hello, world and universe. Welcome to the Trevor Donald Experience. And I want to get into a story today that has everything to deal with the Epstein files and the upcoming Los Angeles Olympics in 2028. They're calling it LA 28. And there's a guy that is caught in the middle, the actual Olympic chief, who is raising money, but has a torrid, mysterious history with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, and some emails came about. Well, I also want to tell you in this same vantage, in this precarious relationship, with the tale of two Larrys. One has to deal with the Olympics, one has to deal with the Epstein files. And we know as these Epstein files have come out, there are a lot of people whose names and had an association with Jeffrey Epstein, and it's not looking good. Well, on the tale of two Larrys, Larry Summers, who, if you don't know, was the ex-Treasury Secretary under President Bill Clinton at the time, his name ended up in the Epstein files, and guess what he did recently? He was previously the ex-U.S. Treasury Secretary under Bill Clinton. Then he was the president of Harvard University for a long time, for a number of years. And here currently, he was the professor emeritus at Harvard University. And as a result of his name in the Epstein files, he resigned from those positions at Harvard. Takes a lifetime to build a career, takes one mistake to ruin it. On the Olympic side, of the tale of two Larrys, you had Dr. Larry Nassar. Remember the ex-Michigan State University doctor who was abusing female gymnasts, got convicted in 2018, which is less than 10 years ago. And that was a black eye on the Olympics. And of course, he was a doctor here in the US of A. Well, we got this guy, this precarious situation with Casey Wasserman, who is technically the Olympic chief for the upcoming 2028 Olympics that will be in Los Angeles. So his position is to raise millions and millions and billions of dollars for the upcoming 2028 Olympics. However, his name is in the Epstein files, and there's issues on whether he should stay or go. This guy is most definitely connected, but there's some similarities. He owned a talent agency, and we know in the Jeffrey Epstein files, whether it was in Europe, overseas, and even some association in the United States, there has been controversy over these talent agencies and were they part of child sex trafficking during the Epstein 90s and 2000s. And ironically, this man owned a talent agency. Not saying he was involved in trafficking, but that is interesting. He owned a talent agency, but also had a relationship with Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Very connected guy. Is this a scenario where he is suffering or a byproduct of white male patriarchal supremacy system? Does he have the complexion for the connection? Will the committee allow him to stay as the chairman of the Olympic Committee based on these allegations that he had a relationship and even went on trips to Africa with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell back in the day? Or will they turn a blind eye and allow his connections and his complexion to bring in and raise money? Is it money over matter or money over people? So let's get into the story. After Epstein files, Casey Wasserman's survival as LA Olympic chief may come down to money. Casey Wasserman, LA 28 Olympics chief, faces pressure to resign after old emails with Ghislaine Maxwell, but the committee backs him as a crucial fundraiser. Is this money over matter? Casey Wasserman's future may hinge on sponsor relationship or sponsor reactions and whether they support him as the face of Olympic fundraising efforts. Behind the debate over whether Casey Wasserman should resign as the 2028 Olympic chief, over 20-year-old correspondences unearthed in the Epstein files is a fraught question that has long haunted the LA Games. Will there be enough money? A growing number of California politicians are calling on Wasserman to step down over steamy emails between him and Ghislaine Maxwell, a longtime companion to Jeffrey Epstein, who was later sentenced to prison for luring minors to have sex with the to have intimate relationships with the financier. Casey Wasserman, apologized for the emails and said he knew nothing about the pair's criminal history, Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. So far, the Olympic Committee has backed Wasserman, with allies saying he's a strong leader and prodigious fundraiser. His supporters say LA needs to keep him on the job, in part because taxpayers are responsible for paying any cost overruns or budget shortfalls from the $7.1 billion games. The Olympics has a history of leaving host cities with big deficits, and LA 28 organizers have repeatedly revised their expenses upward. Some politicians are skeptical that Wasserman's role is essential to keep the finances on track, and worry continued publicity about the Epstein files could make some sponsors think twice before getting involved. In addition to sponsorships, the LA 28 committee brings in money through ticket sales and licensing agreements. Reynold Hoover, chief executive for the LA 28 committee, the nonprofit leading the games, doubled down on LA 28 support for Casey Wasserman, telling Reuters that sponsors aren't concerned about his past relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. He said, "I was at a meeting in Dallas with a potential sponsor. Hopefully we'll get them signed up." And it wasn't, the question about Wasserman's relationship with Epstein was not even brought up. Hoover also said there was no discussion about replacing Casey Wasserman. By some measure, the 2028 Games is less of a fiscal gamble for LA compared to past Olympics. Organizers argue that they don't need to build new structures. They will be using existing buildings, including SoFi Stadium, the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum, and the Intuit Dome. But there are still massive costs that need to be covered, including transportation and security. Given the city's ongoing budget problems, LA could face financial catastrophe if LA 28 Olympics can't break even. Wasserman is responsible for bringing in sponsorships that are the lifeblood of the host committee, said Chris Dempsey, a leader of the opposition to Boston's 2024 bid for the Olympics. If he steps down, is there a person who can replace that skill set and those relationships? So it's almost a stranglehold, and money rules everything. LA is in a fiscal deficit like our United States government in America. America and LA need the Olympics to be here, and they needed to at least break even, if not become profitable. And is LA, the LA city government, our U.S. government, willing to sell their soul to deal with somebody like Casey Wasserman, who had a relationship with Epstein? Does it even matter? He's probably uniquely positioned to do that, and that's a concern that LA 28 board has to consider. The United States Olympics and Paralympic Committee has to consider. Revelations that the then married Wasserman, at 51, exchanged flirty emails with Ghislaine Maxwell in 2003 after taking part in a humanitarian trip to Africa with Maxwell, Epstein, and others, have prompted a rush of Southern California politicians to call for Wasserman's step down. He's apologized for his association with the pair, which occurred several years before her and Epstein crimes around Essex trafficking minors were known. Nevertheless, Casey Wasserman earlier this month announced he would sell his talent agency, saying in a memo to his employees that he'd become a distraction. Wasserman, chair of the LA 28 committee, has close relationship with International Olympic Committee figures and is entrenched in the sports and marketing worlds. He also is involved with the planning effort for more than a decade after being picked by then Mayor Eric Garcetti to lead the Olympic bid. Wasserman last year told the Times that LA 28 has contracts for about 70% of the projects for the projected $2.5 billion domestic sponsorship goal. They're trying to raise $2.5 billion. Big name Olympic sponsors include Google, Starbucks, Delta, and others. Andrew Zimbalist, a professor of economics at Smith College, who has been a critic of the Olympic movement in the past, questioned why the city would seek to replace Wasserman given his connections and longtime standing work on the games. He said he is still an important figure and plays an important role that no one else can do. LA Mayor Karen Bass is among those calling for Casey Wasserman's to step down, telling reporters that it is unfortunate that the LA board is supporting him. According to city sources who asked for anonymity because they weren't authorized to talk to the media, Wasserman is not involved in the day-to-day planning when it comes to the city's Olympic preparation. Bass and others work primarily with Hoover, COO John Harper, and other LA 28 committee employees. Wasserman also isn't known to be close to city staff or elected officials. Casey's relationship with the city termed out in 2022, said the source, referring to the year that Garcetti stepped down as mayor. The feeling among people at City Hall is that replacing Wasserman at this juncture wouldn't be disruptive because the majority of sponsorship money has been raised and LA 28 has grown into a large independent company with some 600 staff members. While LA 28 is responsible for raising money and paying for the games, the city will handle traffic, security, trash removal, and more. And separately, LA is on the hook for the first $270 million in cost overruns for the $7.1 billion games, while the state is responsible for the next $270 million. Any additional overruns will be paid by the city. State Assembly member Mark Gonzalez, whose district includes downtown LA, said that past cheating allegations targeting Casey Wasserman and Ghislaine Maxwell that were detailed in a 2024 Daily Mail story create another layer of distraction around the sports mogul. Wasserman has dismissed the tabloid story. So the question here is, should Casey Wasserman stay or leave the LA 28 chief, being the chief committee person for the LA 2028 Olympics?